Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing us another fantasy football video. And this time I'm doing a mock draft for you guys. I'm doing a 10-team PPR mock draft on the ESPN platform. I will be picking from pick 10 here, so a bit of a tough spot. It's going to be really fun to see how this plays out. Really cool this time of year, too. You can actually get into mock drafts with 10 real people. A lot harder to do that a couple weeks ago. You notice the last couple of mock drafts I did were over on just the Fantasy Pros mock draft simulator. A lot easier to do it here now that we got real people. I think we generally get better results here as well, so it should be a lot of fun. Pick 10, I actually haven't done a mock draft from pick 10 yet this offseason, so that one should be a lot of fun. I've had a couple best ball drafts from it last, but generally best ball is 12 teams, so a little different there. But yeah, 10 team leagues, not a whole lot different than what you're looking at for a 12-team league. The one thing I would note is that typically in a 10-team league, especially with a generic roster like this, where you've only got 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a flex, generally you kind of want to bump up tight end and quarterback just a little bit in those 10-team leagues. The main reason there just being that there are a lot less wide receivers and running backs that you need, and you still need the same number of tight ends and quarterbacks. So those positions sort of get a little bit of a bump just in terms of how important they are. But overall, pretty generic here. We got a full PPR format, so we're certainly going to be bumping up wide receivers a little bit. But of course, with the single flex spot, doesn't necessarily necessitate that we get super excited about the wide receiver position. So we got the draft going here. I'm also going to narrate a little bit as we go through. So pick one. Generally pretty chalk, especially in a full PPR. I'm expecting to see Jamar Chase go off the board. He would be my first overall pick as well. But we'll see what happens there. It's always great starting the draft off with a guy taking this full pick clock. But there we go. We got Jamar Chase off the board here. Not shocking at all. You probably see it go pretty chalk. For me personally, it looks like we're probably going to be looking at picking somewhere in the, the Amon-Ra, Malik Neighbors range. I would be more than okay just starting my draft off going 1-2 there. I would prefer to go one running back, one wide receiver. Just in general, I like going 1-1 in the first 2 rounds. It just gives you a lot more flexibility later on in the draft as to where, like, if I go wide receiver, especially in a draft format where you only have 2 starting receivers and 1 flex, you're sort of forced to prioritize the running back position late in your next pick, and it potentially puts you in a spot where you're not taking the best value there. So if possible, I generally prefer to go one running back, one wide receiver in each of the first 2 rounds. So far, pretty chalk. We got Justin Jefferson going 5th. Seeing CD go 7, so I would love to pick 7 here. Seems like the best value in the draft here. McCaffrey going 6 is certainly going to happen. Feels like he's moving upwards a lot faster than I thought he would. For me, I think he's more of like a late first round pick, just because maybe I'm scared, but I'm a little antsy there. I don't really want to be caught holding that bag this season. We got Puka here, and we're going to be on the board in 1 pick. So ideally for me, I'd love for Genty to make it to me, and he did. So that's fantastic. So Genty's going to be the first selection for us. That's pretty easy. I love Genty. I love Achane and Jonathan Taylor too, but I think that Genty is a clear cut above these. He's probably the last running back. Kind of in a tier of his own. You could put him with Christian McCaffrey if you want, but I really like Genty. So we'll be taking him here, and then we're at the turn here, so we get to go again. I want to take my number 1 wide receiver on the board. And again, when you're picking at the turn here, you don't want to be super critical in terms of what actual ADP is. You can't really play the ADP game. You're not going to wait on anybody. For me, it'd be Neighbors or Brian Thomas. For me, I think I prefer Brian Thomas just because I like the offense a lot more. I know it's a bit of a reach, but personally, I do prefer Brian Thomas to Neighbors. I'm going to go Brian Thomas there. You guys probably know if you followed the channel. I grew up in Seattle. I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan, so hopefully Neighbors and him do great this year, but Brian Thomas just feels like a better play there. I know a lot of people are a little bit concerned about Travis Hunter, but Trevor Lawrence in that offense just should be much better than what the Giants are going to be this season. And I think if you flipped where those 2 players were drafted in the NFL draft, I think people would be a lot higher on Brian Thomas than Malik Neighbors. He had a much better rookie year. Situationally speaking, I like Brian Thomas' spot a lot more. Travis Hunter doesn't scare me. Report came out today that you're going to see them sort of play him at both cornerback and wide receiver throughout training camp. I don't really love that from a fantasy standpoint, to be honest, because typically rookies need training camp, obviously, and you're basically getting half of a training camp as a receiver and half as a cornerback. If you're Travis Hunter, that means that you're not getting as much practice in at either position, really. I think it's going to sort of hamstring him from both spots, really. So I don't love that, but I think in general it's going to be really good for Brian Thomas this year. I do think that Liam Cohen and that offense are going to figure things out and be at least better than they have been in the past. So while I was rambling there, we had a bit of a run at running back. Obviously, Neighbors went right after me. That one, not shocking at all, right? he was the clear pick before me, and I sort of reached a little bit on Brian Thomas. But then we have 4 straight running backs going: Achane, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, and Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs feels like a tier below those 3 for me, so I personally would have went towards someone like Nico Collins there. I think Bucky and Josh Jacobs are really similar. Kyren, Chase Brown, that's like a really similar tier there. So I wouldn't have personally done that. I probably would have gone receiver, or I probably would have gone to Brock Bowers or something if I could have there. Honestly, shocking to see on ESPN Brock Bowers going this late. Like typically, at least in best ball or something, you're seeing Brock Bowers going like the early to mid second, Trey McBride going like the mid to late second, and now we're seeing Brock Bowers go at the late second, early third, and then same thing for Trey McBride. So both those tight ends feel like good values here. I would love it if either one of those guys could make it to me at pick 30. They're not going to, but if either one makes it there, that's going to be an auto pick for me. I won't even have to think about it. A bit of a couple wide receivers going now. We got A.J. Brown, Drake London. Obvious selection made there in Brock Bowers at pick 20. Really fun start for team with number 1 overall pick. They got Jamar Chase, Brock Bowers, and Nico Collins. That's a really good start for them. Here at pick 2, or second pick of round 3, I think there's a pretty clear pick here. I would personally be taking Kyren. If you wanted to go McBride, I think that's a great selection. And honestly, Chase Brown is far underrated right now in ESPN, so he's a target of mine for sure on the ESPN platform. Like, I prefer Chase Brown. I prefer Kyren for sure. Both those guys over Kenneth Walker, who just went in early round 3. Talked about Kenneth Walker as a breakout earlier this week, actually. I like him a lot, but in the 3rd round, I just can't get behind that at all. He needs to be like a 5th round pick, 4th, 5th round pick for me to get behind that. So it depends on the platform you're drafting on, but if he's going this high, I'm definitely not in there. George Kittle looks like a fantastic value at 46 on ESPN. He's not going to make it to you. That's the hard part about the turn. Like, if I want George Kittle, I've got to take him at pick 30 or 31, and that feels a little early, so I don't think I'll get him, but that value is insane. Really fingers crossed that McBride gets to us here, but he's not going to. We've got 1 running back and 1 wide receiver, so we've got a lot of flexibility. I would be okay, honestly, going with either one of the top 4 quarterbacks at that spot, so I certainly can consider that. I wouldn't go tight end and quarterback. It just sort of makes you feel a little bit thin at the skill position players, so I think generally you get to pick one. You get to go early tight end or early quarterback. I don't generally advise going both unless you're in like an 8-team league or a team with like really small rosters. We got a shot here. If we get Trey we got Trey McBride. So that is absolutely fantastic. That's going to be an auto selection for us. And then what we want to do there, so we're looking at our roster. Trey McBride, not even going to think about it. That's an easy pick. That's way too easy. Wow. So now here looking at these players, the next best player available is probably Marvin Harrison for me, but I can't really get behind that just because I don't want to go Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride. That feels like a bit of a reach there. I like Amari and Hampton a ton. That would make me feel really good about my running back room. That's probably where I'm leaning. If I were to go receiver, I think I would probably go Devontae Adams, but I don't really love that. I think we're going to go Hampton. A bit of an early pick, but I got no problem with that. He's my RB2 here, and 2 rookies at the running back spot's pretty fun. We got a really young roster here, so that's a good start for me. So far, we've got Genti, Hampton, Brian Thomas, and Trey McBride. I feel incredible about that start. I feel like that's going to give us a really, really solid start to the year. Really young talent across the board here that's going to give us a lot of flexibility. We can certainly expect those guys to trend upward over the course of the season as well. So really love that start for us. It does mean that we're probably looking kind of past the running back position with our next couple selections. That's okay. Just something you want to know. Like, you can, for the way I see it in a platform like this, 2 running back, 1 flex, full PPR, you probably only need to leave your draft with 3 running backs that you feel comfortable starting. I've got 2 already, so I'll try and draft 1 more running back that I'm okay with, but like, it could be a lower tier guy like a Pollard or a Brian Robinson or something, just someone that I can play in a pinch. It doesn't need to be a guy that I'm like relying on every single week. So I feel really good about our running back spot now. We're probably going to be looking at a target wide receiver. If a really crazy value falls to us at quarterback, we could look there. Like, if Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels had made it to us with our next pick, I'd be in there. Hurts isn't going to make it. After that, though, I'm probably just going to be waiting on quarterback, especially having gone early at tight end. So we saw Jaden Daniels and then Rashee Rice go. Rashee Rice is one of the most difficult players to really project an ADP for right now. He pled guilty, or was sentenced to his DUI charge, or reckless driving charge, actually, fled the scene of a crash. He's probably going to get suspended anywhere between 2 and 6 games, it sounds like. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the exact particulars of it, but it sounds like we should expect a suspension for Rashee Rice at some point this season. Right now, I would probably just assume he's suspended for 4 games. That kind of moves him down quite a bit for me. Like it means that I would probably prefer guys like even like George Pickens and Jalen Waddle who are being drafted way later. So I personally am out on Rashi Rice until he drops a couple more rounds, but we'll see. If he's only suspended 2 games, it's kind of a different story. Still a lot to sort out there, but for me, he's just like he's not off my board, but I need him to fall farther than he has for me to really consider drafting him right now. So James Cook goes round 4, pick 9. That's pretty crazy. That's a pretty strong indictment in terms of what the people, like actual humans, think. So if you look by ADP, he was the 23rd selection, or by rankings on ESPN. That's a really significant drop. That's going from 23rd to 39th. So just keep that in mind. Like it's going to be really important to look at different platforms and see which platform you're on and where the discrepancies are. So it's really something that I do like to do. I like to do my best to pull ADPs from every single platform and look for the variations there so that you can identify which values present themselves on each platform. I'll do some videos on that for you guys later as well, but trust me, it's going to be a really valuable exercise to really understand which values are going to present themselves on your platform. Cool. So a bit of a run at wide receiver. We got Evans, Worthy, McLaurin go here. We're up in 4 picks. We've got to start thinking about our next selection. Just for temporarily speaking, we're going to sort by wide receiver. Garrett Wilson, not a guy that I've been high on, but if I'm getting him with my 5th pick, I'm definitely in on that. So he's certainly a selection that I could consider making here. George Pickens, Jalen Waddle are 2 guys that get me really excited as well. I think Calvin Ridley and Jamison Williams are great picks. I really love this middle tier of wide receiver in general. So I feel pretty good about our options here. We did obviously miss out on Garrett Wilson. That's a little sad. But still a lot of options here. Chuba goes, that's fine. Love seeing 2 running backs go right before I pick. If I were going to just take 2 wide receivers here, I would probably go DK Metcalf and George Pickens. I'd feel really good about that. George Pickens is going to be an auto pick for me here, honestly. Looking at running back, there's nobody that screams like I must draft there. So I think looking at this, we're probably going to go wide receiver. George Pickens is getting picked, which I think is the other ones. I just want to have George Pickens in my flex in like as many leagues as possible. Now it's tough. For me, it's either DK Metcalf or Cortland Sutton. I could go Jalen Waddle too. Metcalf feels like a guy that's just going to get force-fed targets. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of volume in that offense, but I think it's all going to go to DK. Touchdown upside might be there with Rodgers. I think I'm going to lean DK here, especially he's my wide receiver 2 really over Pickens here. But with between Brian Thomas, George Pickens, and DK, I feel really good about that starting 3. And pair that with my running backs and tight end, I've got a really strong roster here. So I feel really good about that. I think we're at a great spot here. And now maybe next round we can start looking at the quarterback spot. We don't need to, but next round would be the first time that I would at least consider taking a quarterback here. So if we take a look at the draft board, James Conner goes right after. That makes a lot of sense. He was the highest ranked running back. I like RJ Harvey. I like David Montgomery. I like DeAndre Swift quite a bit. So still a decent amount of running backs left on the board. I do want to make a note that I'd like to get one more running back on my roster that I feel good about. So just taking a look at the running backs, for me, I'll probably look to get a running back with my next pick because they do kind of dry up really quick. There aren't a whole lot of like typically there's a really pretty large running back dead zone every single year, and you can sort of sift through it and try to find somebody that's going to be valuable. But it feels like there's just not a whole lot of that this year. I'm going to just sort of star every running back that's left that I would feel good about drafting. So Harvey, Montgomery, Swift, Henderson, I like. Caleb Johnson, like Pollard fits the bill. I think Tyrone Tracy and Brian Robinson. So those are like probably the rest of the running backs that I could potentially draft that I would feel okay about starting on a weekly basis. Maybe a little harsh to Aaron Jones, or that's probably it though. Maybe a little mean there, but I think that's pretty much about it in terms of guys that I would feel okay starting going into the year. So you can see like right now I'm queuing this with 12 picks remaining. There's still 7 of those guys on my board here, and I bet most of them are going to be gone when we get to my next pick here. So I'm going to draft one of those guys with my next selection just because I don't want to go into the year only having 2 running backs. I think that puts you in a pretty vulnerable spot, and it really sets you up for the possibility of one injury derailing your season. You never want to be that vulnerable to some sort of unluck because everyone's going to get unlucky. Everyone's going to get hit with injuries over the course of the season. So make sure that you're a little bit resistant to at least a little bit there. Especially in a 10-team league, right? Like in a 12-team league, you sort of have to pick and choose a little bit. You can't just be loaded everywhere. In a 10-team league, you kind of can. So you just don't want to overload yourself at one position. Make sure that you've got flexibility. And, because we have to start 2 running backs, I want to have 3 just in case. You can see all these running backs are going. Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, David Montgomery, Caleb Johnson. So we are down to 2 running backs left on the board that I would feel, or I guess 4, but 2 on the screen here. Not a lot of running backs left that I'm going to feel good about going into week one. Zay Flowers goes. Looking at the wide receiver position, if we got Jalen Waddle here, like in a dream world, I go RJ Harvey, Jalen Waddle here, and I would just feel absolutely loaded. We're not going to get Jalen Waddle. Well, maybe we will. We got 4 picks left. It's possible. RJ Harvey's just falling too far. People are way too excited about J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins looked. It was really cool for J.K. Dobbins to go out there and have a great sort of bounce back campaign last season. But after week 2, J.K. Dobbins was not a good player. He averaged 3.7 yards per carry over the last 15 weeks of the season. Not a very great pass catcher. RJ Harvey clearly profiles as a pass catcher in this offense. Sean Payton's kind of an old school guy. You're going to need to see RJ Harvey earn it, like rookies have to. So that's why you're hearing reports that J.K. Dobbins is getting the immediate running back 1 snaps in the offense. But I'm not worried about that. Like, RJ Harvey is just by far the most talented running back in that backfield, and it's going to be a good offense. It's going to hyper target the running back spot. So RJ Harvey's a guy that I'm stoked about. I'm definitely targeting him this season. And wow, okay, so looking at the running back spot, it got gross really fast. So Tracy and Brian Robinson are kind of the only 2 left that I had any interest in. But there's some guys I really like at wide receiver. So like Jalen Waddle, I have to take. Like, that's just way too good of a value. I'm not leaving this spot without Waddle. That's a perfect guy to have in my bench. And I was really talking up having depth there. But Tetairoa McMillan is also a guy that I'm super stoked on in a full PPR. Oh, wow. Okay. I think I'm leaning towards going Tetairoa McMillan here. It's going to put me in a bit of a tough spot with my running back 3, so that's certainly a little bit of a concern. We're going to see how it plays out there, but this value is just something I don't really want to pass up. So I'm probably going to go there here. So we took McMillan, kind of exposing ourselves to some risk here. There is certainly a high likelihood that we get to our next pick and every running back left on the board looks disgusting. And then we're going to have a hard time because if Genty or Hampton goes down, even their bye weeks, it's going to be rough. So we definitely want to make sure that we could probably prioritize running back with our next pick. There are some other running backs that we can start, especially given this is a full PPR format. We have a little bit more leeway. I can't believe I missed Jordan Mason. He needed to be queued for sure. You guys know I like Tajay Spears. I think Travis Etienne could be useful in a full PPR. Jaden Blue, maybe. The reports out of camp are not good. I was really excited about Jaden Blue just because I don't believe in Javonte or Miles Sanders, but reports of Jaden Blue being lazy, not something you want to hear about a day 3 draft pick rookie. Like, this should be the hardest he's working at any point in his career, and if coaches are calling him lazy already, that's not good. So I don't love that. Warren could be a PPR guy we could start. So we've got options at the running back spot, but I think ideally we're going to get Brian Robinson or Tyrone Tracy. Not optimistic about either one of those guys being available because I think people realize that the running back spot dries up really quick. But if either one's available, I'm taking one of those for sure. I would also love to grab a quarterback here pretty soon. Look at quarterbacks available. We've got 2 left in this like top tier between Baker and Kyler. If I could get Kyler, that would be fantastic. It would give me the stack with Trey McBride, obviously, and then of course there's just a lot of upside there. But it's okay if you miss out on these because like I've said it many times so far this offseason. I think there's like 20 quarterbacks deep that you could feel decent about going into week 1. Like, we're getting to like the quarterback 10 here with Kyler, right? Then you got Purdy, he's solid. Caleb, Fields, Herbert, May, Dak's going to be just a rock solid low-end quarterback 1. Jared Goff's going to be usable. Jordan Love, I like. J.J. McCarthy's got a ton of upside. Tua, you can start. There's a case to be made for Trevor Lawrence. You guys know I like Bryce Young. I think Geno Smith's got a shot to be streamable. Matthew Stafford, he's a streaming option. Anthony Richardson, if he gets the starting job, if Richardson's the starter, he's going to be good for fantasy. So, there's a lot of upside there. Plenty of quarterbacks. You don't need to reach on quarterback this year. For me, it's either get a value at the quarterback spot or just go late, right? So I'm not going to ever force a quarterback selection. I'm going to need to be in a spot where I see the quarterback and I feel like this is a great pick. It's the right pick for the roster, and it's not something that I'm just forcing because I feel like I need to fill the position because there's going to be a value at some point that presents itself. I hope it's Kyler here because getting that stack's really fun, but even if I miss Kyler, okay, I'll get Dak in 5 rounds and I'll start Dak with George Pickens. That's fun. Or I wait even longer and I get I could go wait even longer and get Trevor Lawrence and start him week 1 and have the Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas stack. There's plenty of options, and you don't even have to stack. I'm saying there's a lot of options in terms of guys that have upside. J.J. McCarthy, I like. Plenty of options there. So we got no need to force it. Looking at the running backs here, though, we are running out quick. So So for me here, if I were going to look at the running back spot, I got really lucky. So Warren left. I think what I want to do here is I'm probably going to go running back, running back. It's going to mean we're going to miss on Kyler, which is a little bit rough, but I just like a lot of the values here. Jordan Mason's a guy that I've been really high on. I think there's a ton of upside there, and I want to get him on a lot of rosters. And then between Brian Robinson and Tyrone Tracy, I think there's a lot of upside. I'm going to go Jordan Mason, and then between Robinson and Tracy, it's tough. Tracy's a guy that I expect to be the starting running back for the Giants. He looked really good last year. I don't think people are giving him enough credit for how well he performed. And I really like Cam Scatabo too, but I think Tyrone Tracy's the guy there. It's kind of a gross, like, 4 running backs in a row. You got 2 running backs in a timeshare and then 2 running backs in a timeshare. I think Tracy's the best running back of these 4 here, so I'm going to go Tracy. Feel really good about it. Like Russ, especially at this point in his career, he really likes targeting the running back spot, and I think Tracy's the guy that's going to get that work there. So like that a lot. I feel like that gave us a lot of depth at the running back position as well, right? So like now we've got 4 running backs that I feel decent about starting every single week, and 5 receivers to go with Trey McBride. So I feel like we're in a really solid spot here. Now we just got to find a quarterback that I feel good about starting, and then we just fill out our bench with some depth and get out of here. So I feel really good about this. Looking at the quarterback spot still, again, it would be fantastic if Kyler made it to us. He's not going to at this point, right? Like, at this point, we're through Kyler. I think kind of if you're past Kyler, it makes a lot of sense to draft 2 quarterbacks. So I'm open to doing that here, especially with how deep we are at the other positions. I don't need to feel like I have a ton of depth at those beyond this, because honestly, anybody else I draft, if I'm starting, it means a lot went wrong. Or I just really hit on a late round gem. But I'm open to drafting 2 quarterbacks here. Maybe like go with a safer pick and then a more upside pick. You don't have to do that, especially in a 10-team league, because there's going to be decent streaming options on the waiver wire as well. So it's not like a forced thing, but just something to keep in your mind as an option for sure. Only 12 picks left till Kyler's there. Again, in a 10-team league, it's something to look at as well. Like, go look at the draft board. So, quarterback. How many teams have taken a quarterback already? You got quarterback there, quarterback. Okay, 1 team that doesn't have a quarterback, 2. Looks like just 2 other teams that don't have a quarterback. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. Basically, like if we get through this pick, it seems like I've got a really good shot at getting a quarterback here. Or not this pick, a couple picks from now. But point being, there's a good shot of us getting still Kyler, because teams aren't generally going to double dip. Typically, especially in a 10-team league, you kind of do go 10 deep at the quarterback spot before you get to a tier break. So it's okay to wait if you have to. I'm more than okay being the last team in my league to take a quarterback in pretty much all of my drafts this season. So just don't feel like you have to take a quarterback because they're the highest player on the board. There's going to be plenty of options. You don't need to force that pick at all. It would be great if Kyler makes it to us. I'd feel so good about this roster if that happens. Sorry, I was talking for a long time. Had to get a sip of water. But yeah, so I think I feel really good about Kyler here. Seeing Justin Fields go is a little crazy. Obviously, there's a lot of upside there. Was he the second quarterback taken by that guy? Let's take a look here. Taking him as your quarterback 1's kind of bold there. That's not how I would have handled it, but I get it. Kyler goes 1 pick before us. That really happened. He already had Lamar. That's dumb. Okay, that wouldn't happen in real life, but whatever. That's okay. So now we really don't need to force the quarterback selection here. So we can go to look at all positions here. I think we definitely just want to take the best player on the board at this point. I definitely want to target upside as well. Like, we don't need a player that we can just consider flexing, right? Because we have really rock solid players. I want to target players that have legitimate, like, these guys could be top 20 at the position upside. I think Travis Etienne has that. Makes me want to vomit, but like, the talent is still there, I think, and in that offense, there's a chance he's the one there. So I'm going to go ETN, and I probably want to spread it out here and go to a receiver. So I'm going to look for the highest upside receiver left on the board. I am a huge fan of Jaden Higgins. That's an option for sure. For me, it's torn between Jaden Higgins and Emeka Egbuka. I think I'm leaning towards Egbuka. A lot of reports coming out that Godwin just isn't quite right yet. That's probably part of why they drafted Egbuka. Egbuka's a really good player. If he's the number 2 in this offense with an aging Mike Evans, there's a ton of upside there. Like, that's a legitimate path towards Egbuka at some point this season being the wide receiver 1 in that offense, and that is just a ton of upside. So I love Egbuka there. Now we've got to get a quarterback and 1 more bench spot and then a kicker and a defense. And again, especially in these 10-team leagues, and honestly in general, unless you're in like a really deep league, I really want to be prioritizing upside with these late round draft picks because it just typically you're going to be cycling through these guys all throughout the season. You're not going to be holding on to them all year. So just swing for the fences. If they don't hit, that's fine. Just cut the guy and find someone else. You really just want to cycle through guys that have as much upside as possible because especially with like this roster, someone really has to perform at an incredibly high level relative to their ADP for them to crack my starting lineup here. So I want to draft somebody that has the potential to do that, not like I like Darnell Mooney, right, who was drafted right after that basically. But there's just no way that Darnell Mooney cracks my starting roster, right? Like at best, he's a reliable wide receiver 3 all season, and in this roster, like I've got Brian Thomas, he's locked in. Pickens and Metcalf feel pretty locked in, and then I got Waddle and McMillan too. So like between those 5 guys, you would need a lot to go wrong for a guy like Mooney to crack into my lineup, as to where Ibuka is a guy that could actually catapult into that tier of player. So that's why I prefer someone with the upside like that. So here we go. Look at quarterback. For me, I think it makes a lot of sense to consider taking 2 here. We've got plenty of depth at every position. We don't need to draft a second tight end, obviously, because we have Trey McBride. So going with 2 quarterbacks here feels like a really smart selection. Dak feels like an obvious pick to me just because you get the stack there with George Pickens. But that being said, we're not going to start George Pickens every single week with this roster, so I don't feel like I need to really prioritize that. Drake May has a ton of upside. One path here would be to go Drake May and JJ McCarthy and just bank on one of those guys panning out. That's sort of what I'm planning, but I think I'm going to go Dak, and then I'm probably going to go Drake May or JJ McCarthy. I think JJ McCarthy has more upside. If he just comes out and he's actually like legitimately really good, which I think he is, I think he's going to be sneaky athletic. I think you're going to get 300 to 400 rushing yards and maybe a 4,000 passing yard, 35 passing touchdown season. I think McCarthy could be really good for us this season. Yeah, I'm going McCarthy. So that's going to round out our bench. Yeah, I really like this team. I won't bore you guys with making us sit through all this and wait till I pick a kicker in defense. So I feel really good about this team. I think if anything, the weakest point obviously is the quarterback spot, but I've been pretty vocal all year about saying that there are about 20 quarterbacks deep that I feel pretty good about. So having both those guys between Dak and McCarthy, I'm going to feel good about it. And there are still a ton of quarterbacks left on the board that I could pick that would be on waivers available as well. So I feel really good about that. I feel pretty solid about this starting lineup. So reading the roster top to bottom here, we've got Dak Prescott at quarterback, 2 stud running backs, Ashton Genty and Amarian Hampton. Our receivers are Brian Thomas Jr., George Pickens, and DK Metcalf, with Trey McBride at tight end. And then on the bench, we have Waddle, McMillan, and Ibuka at wide receiver. We have Jordan Mason, Tyrone Tracy, and Travis Etienne at running back. And then we have JJ McCarthy giving us an upside shot in the arm there on the bench at quarterback. So I really like this roster. I think it's a little bit tough sometimes in a 10-team league to really look at your roster after the draft and really know how well you did, because in general your team should be stacked in a smaller team 10-team league there. But I really like this roster. I feel really good about it. I think there's definitely a lot of depth available here, and within that there's a lot of upside, and that's really what you want to swing for with these smaller leagues, just because the waiver wire is going to be valuable. There's going to be a lot of guys that you can sort of cycle through and start every single week if you need to, and what you really want is those guys that can break out, lap the field, and be dominant players for you, and I think I have a lot of players in this roster that can do that. So I really like this roster. Let me know what you guys think about it. If you guys want me to do any specific mock drafts, let me know. I'm going to try and do something that sort of caters to like every league, so I'll try and do 10, 12, 14 team league drafts, picks from the later spot. I'll do auction drafts as well, PPR, non-PPR, different platforms. You're going to get a lot of mock drafts out of me over the next couple of months, so keep that in mind. You're going to get a lot of stuff, but if there's anything specifically you guys want to see, let me know in the comments below. I'll make sure that I get that done for you guys, and try and get these out quickly here, because I know we're getting closer and closer to draft season. We're 8 days away from the Hall of Fame game as of me recording this, so we're going to get some football. Players reported to camp this week. It's been really fun to see some highlights and stuff on Twitter and everything, so hopefully you guys are having as much fun as I am. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. It helps me out quite a bit. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. There's going to be a ton of content all off season and regular season long. Stick around all year. We're going to win some leagues together, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you with the next one. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.